Assalamu alaikum. It is a great honor and a great privilege to spend Tuesday evenings in conversation, and I do emphasize conversation. Conversation, of course, between Nikki and I, but also conversation with the community about a topic that is of perpetual relevance to all of us. You know, this class, this session has been dedicated to the diseases of the heart, learning about them, diagnosing them, and then prescribing cures for them. Last week, Sister Melissa and I discussed comprehensive treatment for the diseases of the heart. And this week, Sister Nikki and I will be discussing the root of all of the diseases of the heart. So I'm very happy to be in conversation with you, very honored. I want to start with just that expression, the root of all of the diseases of the heart. What are some of your initial impressions? What are some of the first things that come to mind?
So I read the chapter of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before coming. I'm not one to agree or disagree with the Shaykh, but of course I agree with the summation that it's love of dunya. I mean, it's simplified, but that really is everything. It may be something particular in dunya that's pulling you away from Allah and clouding your heart, but when it comes down to it, it really is that simple. It's love of dunya, and it comes in so many forms. So, you know, maybe it's your Netflix binging that's pulling you away. Maybe, you know, maybe it's the friend set that you're with. Maybe it's the love of wealth. Maybe it's, you know, sometimes for people it's family. But all of that is dunya. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because even though the word dunya, the literal meaning of dunya is that which is lowest or that which is closest. So like one good way of translating dunya is the most immediate world, right? That which is most accessible in the world, right? And sometimes I think we forget that everything we're experiencing is a part of the dunya, right? The good and the bad. This is our experience. The realm of existence that we experience directly is the dunya. It's the dunya. Some people use dunya like it's only the bad things in the world, right? You know, it's even common among converts to say, when I was in the dunya, you know, like by which they mean before Islam. They say, man, when I was in the dunya, and I'm always like,
Still here.
I'm like, I mean, I knew you were enlightened, spiritually elevated individual, but now I know you're not even in the dunya anymore. You know what I'm saying? But the dunya is, all of it is dunya, right? And so the first thing I thought about is, what are the reasons that we fixate or unhealthily attach to different things in the dunya?
Oh, that's a deep question. And it's one that I've actually been reflecting on a lot over the last year, just because of things that I've been experiencing in life. And what I came up with, and again, it sounds simple, but I think it's complex depending on who you're talking about and what it is that you are attached to. But I think it comes down to a fundamental distrust in our Lord. You don't trust that he's going to be able to provide for your rizq, your provision. So I gotta keep piling it up. I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta get it. You don't trust that he's going to provide whatever the need is that you have. It's a feeling of, it's a fundamental lack of trust of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and feeling like, therefore you have to be the one that makes this happen. Therefore you're going to make that your ilah in some respects, your God, because you're going to chase this and you're going to, you know, almost like worship this thing in order to pursue it.
I think we're thinking along the same wavelength entirely, because I think it is the lack of tawakkul, this lack of reliance upon God, that leads to an unhealthy attachment to some aspect of the dunya. Right now, if you look at it like in totality, it's because you don't trust, you don't believe, or you're not certain that there is something after this that is more lasting, something after this that is permanent, something after this that you will inevitably encounter. And this world is only a place to plant those seeds that will be harvested hereafter.
Right.
Now, if you really don't believe that, or if you really don't accept that, or if you really haven't settled on that, then the world becomes all you have.
Right. And you got to chase it.
And you got to chase it. And that's actually the meaning of the statement of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Ad-dunya sijnul mu'mini wa jannatul kafir. That the dunya is a prison for the believer, but a paradise for the disbeliever. Right? A prison for the believer because God willing, whatever we get in the next life will make any enjoyment we had in this life seem
like pale, completely.
It will completely pale in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is also true in terms of punishment. Any punishment that one receives in the next life will make all of the enjoyment of this life seem like paradise. Like it was the best thing
ever experienced.
You ever experienced, right? SubhanAllah. He begins, he says, oh, I'm having a tough time with this mic. It's going in and out. I'm hitting it. And he says, the root cause of all of these diseases is love of the temporal world. This is the opinion of both Al-Hilali and Ibn Ashir. Ibn Ta'ala, on the other hand, considered the root cause of every disease to be our self-satisfaction. Now, that seemed like such an interesting pivot. Like first, okay, because when we were talking about the love of this world, I was thinking about the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in which he said, I don't fear for you associating partners with God. But at the end of time, you will be weak, you will be insignificant, speaking to the Muslims, right? And they said, will our numbers be few? And the Prophet said, no, your numbers will be abundant. Two things, حب الدنيا وكراهة الموت. Love of this world and aversion or hatred of death, right? So you love this world and then you want to, you engage this world as though you are going to be here forever, right? So that, when they were talking about love of the world, like I had something I could like attach to in the sources, but this one I had to dig a little deeper, right? Self-satisfaction. What do you think about that? That he says that here, one scholar, Ibn Ta'ala, he said the root cause of all of the diseases of the heart is our self-satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that too. I feel like they seem opposite, but they're somewhat twins of the same, the lack of tawakkul, the lack of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because without that trust, it's then you're dependent on you and we can get diluted. So we start to feel good about the little efforts that we do. And when you start feeling too good about what you're doing in a negative way, you stop forgetting who's allowing you to do these things. So even the little bit of good that you are managing to do, it's still coming from a source greater than you. And if you get too diluted, you stop acknowledging that. And it becomes, again, it all becomes, nafsi, nafsi. It's all about myself. And you're still in that same position of kind of taking oneself as one's Lord, in terms of thinking that you're relying strictly on yourself and then being satisfied with that reliance.
Once I was listening to a lecture by a scholar named Imam Al-Mawlūd, and he quoted a verse of the Quran that I had read at least 1,000 times, right? Because I was once a student in a madrasa and I was attempting to memorize the Quran. So I literally probably read this verse 1,000 times. But in Surah Al-Layl, right, the chapter of the night, the 92nd chapter of the Quran, I believe, Allah describes a certain kind of individual, and He says, "Bakhila wastaghna." Bakhila means to be stingy, right? If you speak Urdu, to be kanjuz. That's bakhila. To be Arabic, we say bakhil. Person is very stingy. But then Allah says, bakhila wastaghna. He's stingy and he deems himself self-sufficient. And the Imam said, those two are always connected. Because if a person does not deem themselves self-sufficient, then they recognize everything they have came from God and from the help of countless other people. Everything I have, people have helped me to get. So it's very easy for me to give. Right? It's in a sense, my giving is paying it forward. Like so many people have helped me along my path. Ultimately, God has helped me to attain anything that I've attained, to achieve anything that I've achieved. For me to lend a helping hand to someone else, it's just decency. But if you deem yourself self-sufficient, I got this on my own. No one helped me. I am a self-made woman. Then it's very easy to be stingy because your attitude toward other people is, no, I got mine. You go get yours. You know, one of the things that I think the youth are fond of saying is, I got it out the mud. I had to get it out the mud. Nobody helped me. This has become like a trope of ours. Nobody helped me. So how will you then help someone else? Right? How can you? No, it doesn't. Only when you recognize I've been the recipient of great favor, first and foremost from God. Secondly, from many people, all of my teachers or all of the patrons at my restaurant or all of the clients at my business, all of these people have helped me, right? So the first thing I thought about is, how easy is it for us to be in a state of complete delusion with regard to who and what we are?
It's very easy. I think it's I mean, especially because we have a culture that I can't even call it American culture now. I think it's worldwide. It's exactly what you described. I'm too old to have recognized the phrase you said that young people are saying, so I have to ask my kids about that one. But you know, in my day, it was the whole pulling yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing.
You know, exactly.
I mean, we love that. We love those origin stories where I did it all by myself. You know, I had nothing and I built and I built and I built and now look at me. I mean, we love that. We idolize that in this country. And I think worldwide now, you know, like how many of us love those origin stories of your favorite startup? You know, he had nothing. I mean, they changed the story sometimes just to make it, you know, sound
somebody
like,
on the sideline is like, you know, his dad was a millionaire, right?
No, because the origin story is we started in the basement, we started in the garage, you know. I mean, we love that.
From the bottom now, you know what I'm saying, you know.
So, I mean, I think it takes the strong, very God-centered, God-conscious person to break that mold because it is so prevalent. And I mean, our society eats that up and loves that. So it really takes a certain kind of personality to stay reflective of like, no, I got this from somebody else.
Somebody gave it to me.
Yeah.
What about with regard to like character? You know, it's you know, once, you know, the great Imam Shafi'i, who of course is known for his legal scholarship. When people reference Shafi'i, they're usually referencing his legal brilliance, but he was also known for being a person of good character. And somebody asked him, they said, how did you develop your character, you know, to such a great, you know, extent? And he said, I take my critics seriously. And they said, excuse me? And then he winked and said, my wife. That the criticisms that I hear from people close to me, I'm actually willing to take those criticisms seriously. And this has led to great growth for me. And one of the things that I think I struggle with is that I'm always too defensive to take critique seriously so that I can grow. So Ibn Ta'ala is saying, when you're self-satisfied, this is the root cause of all of the diseases of the heart. right? When you can't take any criticism because it's like, no, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm
Right.
good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. When somebody tells you, you need to work on your temper a little bit, you could be a little more grateful, right? Sometimes you come off as a bit entitled.
Mhm.
When someone tells you, you know, I love you, but you can be a little inconsiderate. If you take those things seriously, now it doesn't mean that everyone criticizing you
That's right. Yeah.
is offering a well-founded criticism, but everybody isn't lying. If you're hearing the same thing from your spouse, from your parents, from your colleagues, from your neighbors, from your classmates, from the guy who dropped you off in the Uber,
You may need to interrogate that then.
you might need to interrogate that.
Right.
When you say, man, the Uber driver just told me I need to slow down a little bit, man. You know, I'm a little judgmental.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into his car and said, man, this is the dirtiest Uber I ever seen in my life. Hurry up and drop me off. And I'm like, I'm giving you the worst rating I can. Like, I just had somebody here, man, that had a bunch of animals, and I just dropped them off and it made the car dirty. Man, if you'd asked me that, you would have known.
Mm-hmm.
Right? True story, by the way. When you, take criticism seriously, you can grow. Now, my question for you, and maybe you can help me with this. How does being open to constructive criticism and nurturing a healthy sense of self-esteem, how do those two coexist? How can we do both of those at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It's difficult. I think the nafs, the ego, is such that it hates criticism. It hates anything that's telling it, don't be the way that you are, rein yourself in whatever shape, form or shape that means. And we don't like that, but that's the whole struggle that we have in dunya, in this lower level that we're in. It is the struggle of letting the soul overcome the nafs, the ego, and to put it in its place and to keep it in its place. And I think one of the important parts of, studying prophetic character is you learn how to take criticism. I mean, our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, he was the best example, and yet there are times in the Quran where he's I don't know, how do you want to say it, in a respectful way? Yeah, I mean, he's told, you need to have done this differently, and if our prophet can take that and have it memorialized in a book that we're going to be reading to the end of time, you know what I mean, then we can take whatever little criticism this person has, you know what I mean? We can take it.
The thing about critique and praise is that they reveal the very fragile state of the nafs. Because when somebody criticizes me, my first retort, you don't know me. When somebody praises me, I never say that.
Right.
If somebody praises me, I never say, how do you know? You don't know me. No, I say, well, you noticed, huh? Yeah. You noticed that, didn't you? MashaAllah. Yeah. Shaykh Ash'ari, in the same vein, Shaykh Ash'ari, the great Egyptian scholar, he said, whenever the topic of the eternity of paradise and hell is brought up, and there has been a lot of conversation, among Muslim scholars about the eternality of hell, right? There's debate about that, but he says that everybody always asks, I mean, is it really just for God to punish someone eternally? He said, nobody ever says, is it really just for God to give me a reward eternally? Right? Because the nafs automatically responds to that which endangers or threatens it. That which promises to ingratiate it has no problem with that. He said, no one has ever asked me, God is going to put me in heaven forever for just a good life of 60, 70 years? Is that fair? Nobody says that. Right? Because that which promises ingratiation, pleasure, comfort, that which, props up the ego, that which, promises the ego some kind of enjoyment, it's never received with the same critical, give me more.
But I also think it goes back to what you mentioned about self-satisfaction. I think we can delude ourselves and yeah, we struggle, but like we can delude ourselves into thinking our struggle was worth that. Well, of course I get eternity. You know what I had to do down here? You know what I mean? But like, no, no, it doesn't work that way. Like
Yes,
we've been told that nobody, not even the prophet is going to get there without the mercy of Allah. Like none of us make it there without his mercy. But that delusion that we're so great at, we do that, so we can convince ourselves, yeah, I really struggled. So eternity doesn't seem like something I should question because I believe I deserve that.
I deserve it.
Now the rest of it,
exactly right. It's funny because Dr. Omar, may God preserve him, he would always say that self-satisfaction in the soul is like that young child at the birthday party thinking, what a good boy am I. Everybody's smiling at me. Everyone is here for me. That's like our nafs, it's like the primordial state of the nafs, what a good boy am I, right? I'll always remember that. He continues, and this conclusion is obvious because being dissatisfied with oneself prompts you to seek virtuous character and to vigilantly avoid what is inappropriate. So like what I gather from that is that if you were dissatisfied with yourself truly, you would change. You would change. And that if you don't change, even if you're giving lip service to the idea that, oh, I need to change, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, you must like it. Because if you truly were dissatisfied with it, you would change. Right? Once I was reading a different scholar, a scholar that, in fact, he referenced Ibn Ata'illah, and he said, do muraqabah, like take yourself to task, but don't do so mudhikun farihun. Don't do so while laughing and joking. See, a lot of us, we engage in self-reproach as a kind of like self-deprecating humor. We're sitting with friends and we're talking about how lazy we pray. We're talking about how we can barely wake up for Fajr. We're talking about our material excess, but we're joking about it. Man, I got so many pairs of shoes and oh man, I got so many handbags you wouldn't believe. Oh, if somebody serves this particular dish, oh man, I just eat until I'm about to pop. He says, when you take yourself to task joking, you never really take yourself to task. The fact that you're joking about it indicates that you really don't think it's that much of a problem. Because if you really thought it was a problem, it would either one, embarrass you, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-ithmu ma haka fi sadrik, or al-ithmu ma haka fi nafsik." The sin is that which wavers in your soul, right? It wouldn't be something you're laughing about. And the thing that you would be uncomfortable for people to know about you. See, that is the thing that you're really, shame. Shame. And, subhanAllah, I'll say this and I want to hear what you're thinking, right? But we've moved away from being a shame-based culture. And I do agree that shame can be excessive because a lot of Muslim cultures are very shame-based. Sharam and, sharaf, and these are like shame-based cultures where like to do something wrong is to be made to feel ashamed, right? What is the expression in Urdu? What will people say? Hassan Minhaj has a whole bit about his first stand-up special. Oh, I forgot you guys are pious Muslims, you ain't seen that. Get real. It's this phrase in Urdu that, what will people say? An honest man. You guys saw that special too. But he was talking about kind of the excessive shame-based culture. And I do believe that when shame is excessive, it can be incapacitating. It can be demoralizing. But when shame is completely absent, when you're not made to feel shame about anything, it can be absolutely self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
When you have no shame, when it's like, and in our culture, it's like, don't feel any shame. Justify anything you do. And if other people don't like it, that's their problem. That's their problem. And this might be the reason why we can joke about our radha'il, like the despicable parts of our character so easily, because we don't feel any shame. In fact, I think some of us think this makes us real.
Mm-hmm.
This gives me a little texture. This makes me relatable. Yeah, I mean, relatability is important, right? I mean, you want to have some texture, you want to have an edge. I wore a leather jacket tonight. Sometimes I want to feel like I got some edge. You know what I'm saying? But no, that was a joke. I'm just joking. That was for a minute. You know what I'm saying? But being relatable, being real, should never displace shame. The Prophet ﷺ said, "In lam tastahi if'al ma shit." If you feel no shame, do whatever you want.
Well, and that's our culture, right? Just do it. I mean, that's been kind of Nike's phrase for the last 30 years, and that's where we are. That's like all of our popular taglines from YOLO a while ago to whatever it is today. It's all about that just do it mentality, and we have this again delusion of, if what I'm doing isn't hurting anybody else, it shouldn't be a problem, which the fallacy there is you assume that what you're doing is not hurting everybody else, but you can't see all of the layers that bond us together, not just as families, but as societies. And so, yes, your personal shortcomings, when you're not trying to work on them, absolutely are going to have ripple effects. You just may not see them. We may be blind to how they are affecting the whole of society, but they are absolutely affecting the whole of society.
One sociologist said the idea that sex is just a private act between two or more individuals is such a misguided idea. It has societal implications, ramifications. The most obvious is if a child is conceived by two people that are not prepared to parent a child and don't have any commitment to each other or to a child together. It's usually those children that feel neglected and then wreak havoc
on other people's lives.
On other people's lives. But the sex that produced that child is treated, it was just a private act.
Right.
Two consenting adults. What is it? It's their business. But this guy carjacking me right now was the product of two consenting adults just minding their business, and was raised in a household of two consenting adults just minding their business, in which he was sorely neglected, and in a society in which he was sorely neglected. And so this is how he has taken to making a living. But his existence began as just two consenting adults minding their business. We have to think about that.
Yeah, it's deep. I think it's really deep, and unfortunately, that's not something that modern culture, we're all about the quick, the fast, the easy right now. And that really requires reflection. You have to look beyond the surface. You have to be able to see things on a whole different plane in some ways. You have to really see the interconnectedness of humankind, especially the people that you don't feel a connection to. You have to see that there is a connection between all of you all. And, it's just like the majority of us are just not,
there.
We're too distracted. We're too tunnel vision on our wants and our needs. And we're just,
We're not there.
Yeah.
When I think about shame, one story, really an experience that comes to mind. This was just a crazy experience, man. On Division Street, right in front of one of the old white brick buildings of the Cabrini Green housing development, there were a couple of Muslims that owned a convenience store. And, I would go by there and one of my friends actually worked there. And unfortunately, man, they didn't sell alcohol, alhamdulillah, but they would sell all of the paraphernalia necessary to smoke rock cocaine. They would sell it all together. They would sell it all together. You can buy a lighter, a piece of SOS pad, right? Look, they sit in the back like, well, babe, you giving them tails to the hood. You giving tails in the hood. It's the truth. There's a point to this story. The point to this story. This is not poverty porn or something like that. No, it's not. That's not what this is about. You could buy a lighter, a piece of SOS, like that you wash like a pan with, and a little glass flower, like a rose inside of a little glass tube, but the rose was just quickly discarded. They're using the glass cylindrical thing to smoke with. And I would watch people come and purchase this kit for $2. I still remember, you got the whole kit for $2. And people at the beginning stages of their addiction did not want anyone to know that they were purchasing this. They would sit in the store idling, waiting till the store was near empty. Then they would approach the front and say, give me they would lower their voice, give me one of those kits. And for that person, you could see that there was shame. They were ashamed of having succumbed to addiction. And then some people would come in, store busy, yelling as they're talking to somebody else. Yeah. Hey, put one of those kids together for me. And I urge the brother, you should stop. This is not, if you're deluding yourself into believing it's just a lighter, a piece of choy, a piece of SOS pad, and a little flower, you know what they use this for. This is why you sell them in combination. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. And he eventually stopped selling that, alhamdulillah. Right? I petitioned him, some other brothers petitioned him, and he eventually stopped. But it was such an observation in shame. Seeing a person at the beginning of their addiction, they had much shame. No. Or a person coming to buy drugs, pretending like they're buying it for someone else, right? But customizing, it's like, no, he don't like it like that. give him a different one. Give him a different one. No, because there's shame. There's shame. But when shame goes, it's out the window. And when I saw that, I thought about the words of the Prophet ﷺ. In lam tastahi if'al ma shit. If you don't have any shame, do whatever you want. Because it doesn't matter at that point. The soul is dead. See, sometimes, our actions and our values are not in alignment. That happens. Usually when that happens, there's a feeling of shame. I did something that doesn't really represent me. I said something that's not the best expression of what I am, who I am. There's some remorse, there's some shame. If you don't have that, the actions don't even matter. SubhanAllah. And may Allah help everybody struggling with addiction. He said the origin of either of these states relates to the company one keeps from either camp. For a man's character is that of the company he keeps, or a woman's character is that of the company she keeps. What are some of your thoughts about that?
It's deep. It reminds me, I don't remember if that was hadith or just one of those sayings from one of the sages of the past about, hanging around somebody that's in a perfume shop or works in a perfume shop, you're going to smell like the perfume. You hang around somebody that's a blacksmith. Well, we don't really have a lot of blacksmiths, but I guess someone who was, say, a modern day garbage man, you're going to smell like that. And I mean, I definitely in my years, I've seen that. I've seen that, you become like the friends that you keep.
Yes.
And they become a reflection of you. There are some people that are strong enough to be able to have friends that maybe aren't where they need to be, and that does not affect them. But I think by and large, for most of us, you need to keep good company. You need to be around the people that you see and want to emulate in good ways, to protect yourself.
The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mar'u ala dini khalili," that an individual is on the deen of their close friends. Now here, when he says it comes down to the company you keep of either camp, he's saying that if you are in the company of people striving to be virtuous, then you will naturally strive to be virtuous. But and one of the characteristics of people striving to be virtuous is that they recognize their shortcomings. In fact, one of the great benefits of spending time with righteous women, righteous men, is that when you see how they think of who they are, it just makes you ashamed that you could even feel that you were. It's like, this is the person that, if they lose their temper slightly, like if they express kind of a slight agitation too aggressively, they will take themselves to account for that. It's like, what I said back there, I shouldn't have said. I'm like, what did you say? It's like, what did you, when you ask me, I think maybe the way that I express my discontent, like I smirked a little bit, or just my body language, I don't want you to feel anything. I'm like, if that is your level of self-awareness, then I need to just go home and never come out of the house.
It'll wipe that self-satisfaction away really quick.
Really good. It's like, you're apologizing to me for what? Because I said something and you like smirked or shrugged. How many people do I need to apologize to? That maybe something I did contained other, something I did harm them. My facial expression, or the way I responded, or my tone of voice, or, that is the benefit of good company. They say that I forget the saying, but they say that the good deeds, they say the good deeds of the salihin, or the good deeds of the righteous, are the sayyi'at of the muqarrabin, are the bad deeds of those that are truly close to God. I remember hearing that, saying, what do you mean? And the Shaykh said, like waking up for Fajr on time. He said, many of us, if we wake up for Fajr on time, oh man, everything is going good after that. It's like, I woke up for Fajr on time, I go to the gym, every shot is going in. You know what I'm saying? People are like, man, you're on fire today. I woke up for Fajr on time. That's like a big deal for some of us. It's like, you have some people, if they woke up at the time of Fajr, they would be devastated. I missed Qiyam al-Layl tonight. We're like, so what?
Right, it's not mandatory.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, you missed Qiyam. You woke up for Fajr on time. Shouldn't we celebrate? We woke up for Fajr on time. That's what they mean. When you're hanging out with people who, they're striving in that way, you start striving in that way. The Prophet ﷺ, just really, really penetrating advice. He said, knowing that we are creatures of comparison, we compare ourselves to people, right? It's natural. When it comes to deen, always compare yourself to people better than you. This will keep you striving, right? Think about who you are in relation to your grandmother. Think about who you are in relation to this sister. Think about who you are in relation to this sheikh. But when it comes to dunya, right, worldly attainments, always think about who you are in comparison with people that have been given less than you, because it will make you grateful. You will have a truer sense of gratitude. You know when that really happened for me? Funny. I'll tell you. One of the things I've always wanted was a big beard. I always wanted a big beard, man. It was just, I would make dua in sajda for a big beard. I would be in sajda like, make my beard grow, O Lord of the world. I always wanted a big beard. You know, Shaykh Muhammad Imam on 63rd Street was one of my teachers. And I would see his beard and think, SubhanAllah, if only I could have a beard like that. And I don't know if it's hereditary, but my beard will not get any longer than this. If it does for like a couple of days, it's like looking full. I go to sleep, I wake up, it's broken off. I'm like, it's like, I just can't, you know, and I went to school with Daisies, some of the most hirsute people in the world. It would be a boy like 14, his beard down to here. I'm like, man, is the diet, man? I need to start just eating dal chawal every meal, and then maybe I'm gonna get enjoyed. It never happened for me. And I remember once I was at Azhar and I saw a brother from Indonesia. He had 2 strings. He was playing with the strings like this. And I looked at him and I laughed. I said, and he said back to me, Sunnah. Sunnah. And I thought to myself, SubhanAllah, it's okay. It's not, you know, it's not the beard I want. You know, I want that most interesting man in the world beard that comes up and connects at the mustache. And, you know, you could barely just see my eyes, you know. But he probably wants the same kind of beard. All he has is 2 strings. He has 2 strings, and he seemed content with his 2 strings. So I looked at, and it was the funniest sight to me. I said, he looked and said, like, what are you laughing at? It was Sunnah. Duh. Why else do you think I have these 2 strings? And I thought, SubhanAllah, I should be comparing myself to him, not Shaykh Muhammad. Shaykh Muhammad's beard is like down his navel. You know, I'm just like, this thing is nothing, man. You know what I'm saying? So the problem with our community is we do the opposite. When it comes to anything of the dunya, we compare ourselves to people that have much more than us. It's like, look at my car, look at his car. Look at my house, look at his house. Look at my clothes, look at her clothes. Look at my job, look at her job. And when it comes to deen, we compare ourselves to people that don't even practice. It's like, I mean, at least I'm better than him. I mean, I pray Eid. I mean, I come to Jummah. I mean, he's really out there. She's really out there bad. No, we're supposed to do the opposite. Compare yourselves to people that have been given more than you in faith and people that have been given less than you in dunya. SubhanAllah. Any other thoughts about suhbah, about good company?
I have a question for you.
Okay.
What would you say to somebody that just is like, I don't have it. Like, I don't have friends like that, or I don't know the people that have the good character that I should be hanging out with.
SubhanAllah, they say that being in the company of good people is better than being alone. But being alone is better than being in the company of bad people, right? The other thing that I think when we talk about being in the company of people of good characters, never forget that you might be a source of inspiration for someone else. So strengthening, you know, it's almost like, just like, you know, because when we're hanging out with people of good character, we have to also reckon that they're hanging out with us. It's like, I'm benefiting from him, but I know he's not benefiting from me. You know, it's like, I'm benefiting from this person, But the way they relate to me is that they're allowing me to benefit from them. Now, we can also be that for some people, right? There are some people that look at maybe one of us and think, man, I know I'm not really on my deen. I don't pray. I definitely wouldn't go to Tet Leaf on Tuesday night. I'm not at that point. But she still allows me to hang out with her, right? And maybe something you have will rub off on them too, you know? So if you don't have access to people like that, you might have to become a person like that, which is a more difficult task. You know, I once had a roommate named Jerome Thornton. He was from Bastrop, Louisiana. And he would see me praying. He wasn't Muslim. He would see me praying. And one day he just asked me, he said, "You do that every day, huh?" I heard, "Yep." He said, "Can I pray with you?" I said, "You want to become Muslim?" He said, "No. Man, I'm from Louisiana, man. I'm Christian." He said, "No, I want to become." He said, "But when you pray, I'm just going to pray with you." And I swear to God, it would have been the oddest sight you've ever seen in your life. When I would be praying, I would be making salat. He would be standing next to me on his knees going, "Oh, wow. Getting his prayer, getting it in, getting it in. And it got to the point, all 5 prayers. Wow. It got to the point, he would wake me up for Fajr. Look, it's time. It's time for us to do this, man. I would be telling him, wrong. It's not the exact time on the calendar. We got a window. Calendar say 4:45, Will. We got to get up, man. We got to offer these prayers. Come on now. I'm like, well, am I benefiting you or you benefiting me? You know what I'm saying? You know, so sometimes we have to be that for other people. That somebody is maybe inspired by something that we're doing, right? So that's the way that I think about that. You know, subhanAllah. Finishing it out. Yes. He said, thus, if a man or a woman achieves any state, inevitably his or her companions will be affected by it. So anything you become, people around you will be affected by it. For this reason, Luqman, the full moon of wisdom, advised his son to keep close company with the people of knowledge. He compared the effect of the reviving light of wisdom upon the heart to that of a lush downpour upon the barren earth. So you were talking about like our interconnectedness. And what are maybe some examples, if you care to share, of you've seen how maybe your state has affected someone else or someone else's state has affected you? Or the same thing among people that you're familiar with? Yeah. I mean, I have like one really good friend who I've had since, elementary school, junior high school. And, you know, it's one of those things that as we're getting older, we're both somewhere in our 40s now. And so we just somewhere. Yeah, somewhere. We don't have to discuss where. We'll have to get specific. Exact location is important. And it's one of those things where I just really feel like I was put in her life for a reason and she was put in my life for a reason. We have this kind of checks and balances kind of relationship, very similar temperaments, similar struggles with deen, similar strengths. And when one of us is down, the other one is the like, no, you got this. You can do this. This is, you know, and the other one is the one, let's send in a lecture or send in a hadith or, you know, and we literally seesaw, you know, like that, you know, this one's down and it's her turn to step up and pull. And when, you know, I'm down, it's, you know, it's just, it goes back and forth like that. And it's one of those things that I've really seen is like, you know, Allah, I don't know if we met in the realm of souls and decided we were going to do this for each other in this world, but you're like, you know, you are a blessing. You are a blessing to me. Inshallah, I hope I'm a blessing to you because we help keep each other, inshallah, on the straight and narrow. Inshallah. So I definitely see it.
But to answer the question that I posed to you, because there are times in my life where I did feel that, where I didn't have the access to scholars and people who I felt like could help kind of bring me up in that way that we've been discussing. But then I tried to create my community. Like I joke with my family, like I've got all these teachers who, to me, they are my teachers. Like I pray for them. They've never met me. They wouldn't know me if they saw me because they're on YouTube. But the effect that they've had on me, like they are absolutely integral to the person that I am today. Absolutely integral. Like I did Hajj, alhamdulillah, a couple of years ago in 2016, and they're on my Hajj list. Like I'm praying for all of them because I wouldn't be the Muslim I am today if not for their, what they put out in the world, And again, they may never ever know my name, but like I absolutely, attribute where I am in life to their knowledge, and what they put out in the world. So absolutely that effect of companionship, whether it's virtual, and virtual is when you don't have the real thing, virtual is a thing.
It's like te amo, man. When there's no water.
Yeah. It is the sand. It's the sand, right?
That dirt,
it's the sand of companionship.
It's the sand of companionship.
So you build that community however you can, and inshallah, you see the fruits of it. You see the effect of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. The benefits of good companionship are almost too numerous to even attempt to like count them. It's like I've seen many people undergo just like crazy transformation just because their surroundings changed. Right? Their surroundings changed, right? For good and for bad, right? I've seen people go from being very innocent and sensitive and committed and devout to being completely profligate just because their surroundings changed. We have this ability to affect each other, right? It's just, it's a part of our, the way that human beings, I think, engage is that we're either making withdrawals or we're making deposits in each other all the time, and sometimes it's very simple. It's just like a person's state of anxiety can make me anxious. It's like, man, I was good until I started talking to you, you know what I'm saying? Now, it's like, a person's, optimism can make me optimistic. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, the best thing for me is just talking to people that don't share that point of view, right? People that, like, for them, it's like, no, man.
Everything's rosy.
Alhamdulillah, God is in control. It's, this, everything we're dealing with is in the hands of the most merciful of those who show mercy. Abshir. Things are looking up. And all of a sudden, I start feeling better, right? One of my friends, man, he suffers depression, and he's attempted different kinds of intervention, sometimes medicinal, sometimes therapeutic, sometimes. But one simple way that he says that he can interrupt his depression is by going to Terminal 5 at O'Hare, the international terminal. And he said, seeing people greet loved ones that they haven't seen in a very long time just reminds him that there is good in this dunya, right? Because, when you go to the international terminal, these are people that maybe you haven't seen them in years. And he says, when that door opens and they say, there he is, Dad, Dad. He's like, it reminds him, two hearts that Allah brought back together. There's something good in this dunya, man, right? Or, the Prophet ﷺ said that there's 99, you can divide the mercy of God into 99 parts, right? Only the lowest part of one has been sent to the dunya, right? The other part is all in the next life. And then he said, but from that one, the child cares for its young. The mother is concerned about her infant child. The husband and wife have rahmah between them. Like that's just one part of God's mercy. And when I'm exposed to people who are living witnesses to that mercy, I feel better, right? And when I'm exposed to people that they're just not able to access that right now, I also feel that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like recognizing that, look, whoever you hang out with, they're going to impact you. They're going to affect you. They're going to leave you with the share of something, or they're going to take something from you. It would prompt us to choose our companions more wisely, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, to choose our relations more wisely, mashallah. So maybe this is a good place to stop, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. ما شاء الله.
Bismillah. One of the questions that we have online says, Saddam, thank you for addressing shame-based culture. How do we balance between shame and negative self-talk, self-judgment versus remorse and healthy levels of shame/guilt that can motivate us to improve?
Wow. That's one of those questions that you immediately recognize that the questioner is more intelligent and deeper than you are. You know what I'm saying? But just taking a swipe in the dark, the way that I've attempted to balance those things in myself is allowing for the feeling of remorse, right? When you do something wrong, and allowing for the feeling of shame when you've misrepresented who you are, but then also recognizing that even in that state, I'm exactly where God has placed me. I am nothing besides what God has determined me to be, even in that state. And from there, I'm able to strike a balance that, yes, there's remorse, yes, there's shame, but there's also resignation. This is also the qadr of Allah. When the Prophet ﷺ, taught us that one of the pillars of Iman was al-Iman bil-Qadr, right? Sharrihi wa khayri wa sharri, qala Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, belief in divine decree, it's good and it's bad. It's interesting that when we think about divine decree, we only think about those things external to the self. We think like, I lost my job, it was the qadr of Allah. Or I got a new job, it was the qadr of Allah. I got a divorce, it was the qadr of Allah. I got married, it was the qadr of Allah, right? I had a child, it was the qadr of Allah. I lost the child, it was the qadr of Allah. We don't also connect qadr to our states. So like, I'm in a state of disobedience, it's the qadr of Allah. I'm in the state of obedience, it's the qadr of Allah. So in that, I can feel the remorse, but I also feel resignation. Like I'm prepared to work from here because this is where God has me right now. This is where I'm at right now. So if I'm not praying, this is where I'm at right now. If I'm drinking, this is where I'm at right now. And that is also the qadr of Allah. And nothing that I could have done was going to impact this outcome so that it wouldn't be. I was going to be right here. And sometimes you have to recognize that these things with which I'm struggling are not things that I got into overnight, and I might not get out of them overnight. Right? Ibn Ata'illah, he says beautifully, it takes time to develop a habitual act of wrongdoing. Like you've developed that act of wrongdoing over time. So now you have to commit the same amount of time to breaking those bad habits, which could mean a number of relapses and coming back and relapsing and coming back. You spent time developing the bad habit. Now you have to spend time relinquishing the bad habit. And some of us want to spend 3 years developing a bad habit, but a single evening relinquishing the bad habit. No, it doesn't happen like that. Allah has me here, and I have to be prepared to do the hard work, from here. And Allah knows best. You have anything?
One thing that I would address that somebody recently said to me, and it just was profound. And I mean, it has to do with this sense of shame. And I think, as Shaykh had mentioned earlier this evening, how it can become debilitating sometimes. And what this person told me is you have to kind of look inward. And when the sense of shame is debilitating, if it has you unwilling to move and unwilling to change because that voice is that strong, then you have to recognize that that voice is most likely coming from Shaitan, because he's the only one that benefits in your lack of movement. The kind of shame that's healthy is the kind that propels you to do better, that makes you want to go closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when I was told that, it was like a light bulb, it was a light bulb, because the way that Shaitan likes to attack me is actually through stuff that seems praiseworthy. It's like, I set these lofty religious goals for myself, and then I can't meet them. And it's the sense of shame is just, what's wrong with me? Why can't I, you know what I mean? And she was the one that kind of like pointed out, like, well, actually, if it's doing that, have you ever considered that that's Shaitan's voice? That's not Allah trying to get you to do this particular thing. And it was game changing. It really was.
That's a game changer, man. I remember Dr. Bilal Ware, I heard him explain the distinction between humility and self-doubt. That humility is from Allah, because humility is something that, it's effective when after we do something, we think it could have been done better, right? After we finish doing something, we say, I don't know if it was sincere, or I don't know, I could have, been more selfless. But self-doubt is that which debilitates, it incapacitates. You see, no, you don't do it. You can't do it. You're not good enough to do it. That is from Shaitan, because the goal is to debilitate you. No, you can't do it. You're not good enough. Don't try that. Humility is after you do it. It could have been done better. Right. I could have worked a little bit harder. I hope I was sincere in what I offered. That's humility. That imposter syndrome, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. That's from Shaitan. Because the goal is for you to be debilitated, hopeless, depressed.
And then stagnant.
Right?
Does anyone in the space have any questions? Anybody?
So we started off the night talking about the root of it all was, love of the dunya. And I feel like a lot of times the solution to that is people talk about asceticism. But for many of us, living on the first world country, we're never going to be in that type of situation. And many of us have very good jobs. So how do we reconcile having this level of wealth, this level of attachments in the dunya, while still trying to kind of separate that love of it? And
Bismillah. The way that many of the spiritual masters talk about zuhud or asceticism is that it's not about what's in your hand. It's about what's in your heart, right? Now, of course, those two are, interrelated, right? What's in your hand and what's in your heart. But the test of your attachment to dunya is the ease with which you can give it. You see, if a person has a great deal, but doesn't, find it difficult to give it away, then it's clear that they aren't really attached to it in an unhealthy way. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, as-sadaqa burhan. Like non-obligatory giving is a proof, right? I'll never forget Imam Zayd Shakir, explaining to us that when God talks about giving of your wealth and yourself, the two are related. If a person can't give away the dunya $1,000 at a time or $100 at a time, if they believe that they'd be able to make some ultimate sacrifice like a martyrdom or something like that, they're deluding themselves. If you can't give away the dunya $1,000 at a time, you're going to give away the whole dunya at one time? No, it doesn't work like that, right? It's clear that, there's an unhealthy attachment. So the sign that one is healthily attached to dunya is that when you have it, you take care of your responsibilities, right? The people that you're responsible to, you spend it. Like spending money, believe it or not, in a lot of the older spiritual manuals, they said that spending on what is necessary is actually a sign that one is not unhealthily attached to the dunya. Hoarding dunya is actually the sign that one is unhealthily attached to dunya. Like people, like when we think about somebody being niggardly, which is not, just means miserly. These are people that are often losers in the dunya and the akhirah. These are people that they don't even spend the money in their possession. It's somehow satisfying, just watching the money just accumulate. Somebody say, man, give it for the sake of Allah. No. Well, then spend it on your children. No. Spend it on yourself. I just like looking at my portfolio and just seeing it grow. It's like that. I mean, there's an unhealthy attachment to the dunya, right? So the first thing I would say is, if we find that we give regularly and give plentifully, then it's a sign that, inshallah, we have a healthy relationship with dunya. The second thing is how we respond to its decrease. That's another thing. If you find that, your happiness, your positive outlook is directly related to what's in your bank account, this could be a sign that you are unhealthily attached to dunya. And we all know people like that. If they're happy, stocks are doing well. You see them? Hey, salam alaikum, come have lunch. You see him and he's, S&P 500 today. It lost oh my God. There's an unhealthy attachment there, right? If your children know, if dad is happy, money's up. Dad is mad, money's down. There's an unhealthy attachment there, right? That's the other side. They say how a person acts when it goes. If a person can have dunya and they could hear, you just lost. And they can, subhanallah, qadarullah ma sha'a fa'ala, it's gone. Subhanallah. And of course there's a feeling, but if they're like, man, it's time to make maghrib. But if a person is like devastated, I lost the money. The money's gone. I can't even get out of bed. And we know people, I'm not ridiculing, because we know people like that. It's like, after the real estate market fell apart, he couldn't even get out of bed for a week. So, and all of his needs are still met, right? All of his needs are still met, but we're unhealthily attached to worldly things. The last thing I'll say is, I remember, because I'll make no secret of it, there are things that I really like. And I asked Sheikh Muhammad Mendez, someone that I really respect and that I think of as a zahid in the dunya. I think of him in that way. I said, what are the signs that I'm unhealthily attached to something in the dunya? What are the signs? And he gave me something clear that I use all the time. He said, think about the qawaid of the Sharia. Think about the 5 fundamental objectives of Islamic law. the preservation of life, the preservation of wealth, the preservation of honor, the preservation of the intellect, right? And the last one is nasl, like progeny, lineage, which relationships, right? If you are attached to something in a way that you're willing to sacrifice any of those, right? That you're willing to risk your life for it, or the preservation of deen, the most obvious one, right? You're attached to something that you're willing to give up your religion for it. You like cars that much that you're willing to give up your religion for them, or you're willing to sacrifice your self-respect for this thing, or you're willing to jeopardize your relationship with your children for this thing, and jeopardizing your, or you're willing to risk harming your mind. Hifdh al-aql. You're willing to risk harming your mind for this kind of enjoyment. Then there's an unhealthy attachment, right? As long as, you're attached in a way that does not jeopardize any of those things, the attachment, inshallah, is healthy. Alhamdulillah. Anything to add?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive. Mashallah.
We have a question saying, you were speaking of people who are addicted and some of their characteristics. How are we to interact with someone who is close with us, family, with what is the Islamic perspective on this?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I don't really know that there's I'm sure there is. I'm sure you can find somewhere. But I think this is a place that we should turn to people with training, specialization, because you want to be supportive, but you don't want to be an enabler, right? I'm sure that it's a very difficult balance to strike, but alhamdulillah, this is one issue that I think at different times our society has had to come to terms with in very intentional ways. So I think there is no shortage of qualified men and women that can offer advice and training to people that have family members that are, addicted to drugs or alcohol. I think sometimes when we think about addiction, we often think it's just the person that's addicted that needs counseling or needs help. It's also the family members that need counseling and need help. It's like, I just watched a person that I love disappear or become a shadow of who I knew them as. In a sense, they've died. You almost need grief counseling. Like, this is not my brother. Not that I grew up with, that I grew up like playing baseball with and going to Sox games. This is not this guy that stole my mother's handbook. That's not my brother. And so I think we have a misconception, I think, when we assume that it's only the person that is suffering the addiction that needs, professional help. So I would just recommend the person to seek professional help. And with fields like that, I don't think it's necessary that the person be Muslim, right? But if you can find someone that combines that kind of therapy or counseling with a rootedness in Islam, that's mashallah. That's like nurun ala nur, light upon light, mashallah. Light upon light.
You say that, and I think even for my own story, I've recently lost my father to cancer, but majority of my whole entire life, knowing him, having a relationship with him, he suffered he suffered from drug abuse, and I found that I wish that I would have, as a Muslim, would have used patience as the number one tool of interacting with him. Because when an individual is going through the process of getting clean or relapsing multiple times, I found that one, being a support system for them, but also having patience, because this is an ongoing journey that they never see. That, like, when we talk about addiction, it's not like I'm
cured.
I'm cured. It's
Yeah,
it's a day by day quest, you know. And I think we should treat those relatives as a person going through a day by day quest.
Yeah, no, it's subhanAllah, man. The motto was one day at a time. The motto was one day at a time. I had a couple very close family members, my father, my grandfather, the latter of whom I lived with and watched him suffer addiction. It's difficult, I think, man. It's difficult, man. So my heart goes out to you, and I don't need to empathize with you because I am you, in that regard, man. So we have to support each other. You know what I'm saying?
Simple one, inshallah. Could you repeat the maqasid al-sharia?
Maqasid al-Sharia. Now, when people say the maqasid al-Sharia or the objectives of the Sharia, what they mean, or excuse what I mean, Sharia law. That strange amalgam of rules and principles outlawed in Oklahoma. Right? The maqasid are the objectives. So, like, if you look at, Islamic law comprehensively, you will find that everything in the law is dedicated to preserving these 5 things, and they're in descending order of importance. All right. So the first is hifd ad-deen, or the preservation of deen itself, right? Preserving the faith. The second is hifd al-hayat, or the preservation of life, right? The third is hifd al-aql, the preservation of the intellect, right? The preservation of the ability to reason. The fourth of them is hifd al-mal, right? Oh, the fourth is hifd al-nasl, or the preservation of lineage, progeny, right? Family. The last is hifd al-mal, the preservation of property. The reason why, and the sometimes mentioned as the 6th, is hifd al-ird, the preservation of dignity. The reason why these become useful is that when you see like unprecedented things, like that there's no ruling for these things, like in traditional books, you have to have that framework to kind of just intuitively feel your way through. That nothing in my religion would okay me sacrificing my deen or my life or human life, right? Or my intellect or my children or my property or my dignity, right? Nothing in my religion would in fact, Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, he said, if it appears that following something outwardly, meaning like this is the ruling, if it appears that following that would lead to the compromise of one of these maqasid, then the implementation of that cannot be correct in that circumstance. Because these are things that are never sacrificed. These are things that are never compromised.
Last question that we have online is, what's the best way to respond to someone joking about how they're a bad Muslim or something similar?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what it seems like the root of that is. And I guess we can't always know that, but a lot of times I think it falls into that category of self-deprecating humor. that may be something that that person genuinely feels about themselves, which is why they're treating it lightly. So I think it's, if depending on your relationship with them and how you know them, inshallah, maybe the answer is boosting them, telling them all the ways that they are doing good, telling them all the ways that like, no, you got this, reminding them that just the fact that that's a concern at all is a sign that Allah wants better for them.
Yes. Yes. I think, self-deprecation, you have to be very careful with it, because on the one hand, it could lead to self-satisfaction, right? Like if you really wanted to change, why would you be joking, right? On the other hand, it can lead to ingratitude, because it's like, wait, hold on. God has given you a great deal in terms of, your religious observance and your good character and your positive qualities. So sometimes it's just reminding people of those good things so that, be thankful, man. Meaning like, rather than spend, inordinate amounts of time being down on yourself, right? Sometimes just give thanks to Allah for the 2 prayers you do make every day, man. Right? You make Dhuhr and you make Asr as you're at work. Yeah, it's not funny that you only pray 2 prayers, every day, but thank God for those 2 prayers. Some people don't pray those. And from there, may God give you more. Something that one of my teachers always reminds me of is when Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you give thanks, then He will increase you in what you have. That this also goes for tawfiq. He said, we think that this is only relates to money and material things, but give thanks to God for what you have. If you give thanks to God for, man, I complete my obligatory prayers, then God will make you one of those who rise at night to pray. If you give thanks to God that I fast when Ramadan comes, and I'm thankful for that because some people don't know to do that, then you can become one of those people who fast on Mondays and Thursdays. So I would say mix some of that self-deprecation with like some gratitude, man. Right? Even gratitude for the fact that you're aware of this thing enough to even joke about it. Right? Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-'asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilu as-salihati wa tawasaw bil-haqqi wa tawasaw bis-sabr. سبحان ربي رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. آمين يا رب العالمين.